floor. That morning, the most powerful mafia boss in the city walked into his own building disguised as an ordinary man. He expected routine, silence, obedience. Instead, he noticed the receptionist hiding her arm under the desk, her fingers trembling, her eyes avoiding his. When he quietly asked what happened, she whispered only 4 words, "Please, don't tell anyone." That was the moment he realized the truth was far worse than a broken arm. The morning fog hadn't lifted yet when Marcus Romano stepped out of the black SUV 3 blocks away from the Sentinel Tower. He wore no tailored suit today, no diamond cufflinks, no Italian leather shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Instead, he looked like anyone else. Faded jeans, a worn gray jacket, sneakers that had seen better days. His normally slicked-back dark hair fell loosely across his forehead. He'd even left his expensive watch at home. No one would recognize him. That was the point. Marcus Romano was a name whispered in fear across the city. The young mafia boss who'd inherited an empire at 28 and expanded it ruthlessly. Banks, real estate, nightclubs, construction companies, all legitimate on paper, all hiding something darker underneath. But the Sentinel Tower was different. It was clean, completely legal. A 12-story office building housing tech startups, law firms, and consulting agencies. His accountant had purchased it 2 years ago under a shell corporation. Marcus had never even visited. Until today. Because 3 days ago, his head of security had flagged something unusual in the building's financial reports. Small discrepancies, missing petty cash, unusual overtime charges that didn't match security footage. Someone was stealing from him. Marcus didn't care about the money. It was pocket change. But he cared about the principle. Someone in that building thought they could take what was his. Someone believed they were smart enough, safe enough, invisible enough. They were wrong. So he decided to see for himself. No warning, no advance notice. Just walk in like any other visitor and watch. The early morning streets were quiet as Marcus approached the building. Sentinel Tower stood tall against the gray sky, all glass and steel reflecting the clouds. Modern, impressive, anonymous, perfect for hiding secrets. He pushed through the revolving door and stepped into the lobby. The space was designed to impress. Marble floors, high ceilings, abstract art on the walls. A security desk sat to the left, currently unmanned. To the right, a small coffee shop was just opening, the barista yawning as she arranged pastries. And directly ahead, behind a sleek white reception desk, sat a young woman. Marcus's trained eyes took her in immediately. Mid-20s. Long dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Minimal makeup. She wore a modest navy dress that looked professional, but inexpensive. Her posture was perfect, back straight, shoulders squared, but there was something rigid about it, like she was holding herself together through sheer will. She was staring at her computer screen with unusual intensity, her left hand moving the mouse while her right arm remained suspiciously still beneath the desk. Marcus walked toward her, his footsteps echoing softly on the marble. She looked up as he approached, and he saw her face clearly for the first time. Pretty, in a quiet way. Dark eyes that seemed too large for her face. High cheekbones, a delicate jawline. But it was her expression that caught his attention. Carefully neutral, professionally pleasant, and utterly exhausted. "Good morning," she said, and her voice was soft but steady. "Welcome to Sentinel Tower. How can I help you?" "Morning," Marcus replied, deliberately keeping his voice casual. "I have a meeting with someone on the 7th floor. Klein and Associates?" It was a lie. There was no meeting, but she didn't need to know that. "Of course." She turned to her computer, and that's when Marcus noticed her wince. Just a fraction of movement, barely visible, but it was there. Pain, quickly suppressed. Her right arm remained hidden under the desk. "Klein and Associates is in suite 704, she said, pulling up the information. "The elevators are just behind me. You'll need a visitor's badge. I can print one for you if you provide an ID." "Sure." Marcus pulled out a fake driver's license, one of many he kept for occasions like this. The name read, Michael Ross. She took it with her left hand, glanced at it briefly, then placed it on the scanner. Her movements were efficient but careful. Everything done with her left hand. "Thank you, Mr. Ross," she said, handing back both the ID and a temporary badge. "Suite 704, 7th floor. The meeting rooms are to the right when you exit the elevator." "Appreciate it." Marcus took the badge but didn't move. Instead, he let his gaze drift casually around the lobby, giving himself an excuse to linger. "This is a nice building. You been working here long?" A flicker of something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe, or wariness. Most people didn't make small talk with receptionists. "About a year," she said carefully. "You like it?" It's fine." Her smile was practiced, automatic. "I hope you have a good meeting, Mr. Ross." It was a polite dismissal. Marcus recognized it immediately. She wanted him to leave. Not because she was rude, but because she was afraid someone might notice them talking. "Thanks," he said, and walked toward the elevators. But he didn't go to the 7th floor. Instead, he pressed the button for the 5th floor, the building's management and administrative offices. According to his research, that's where the real power sat. The building manager, the HR department, the executives who ran day-to-day operations. The elevator doors opened to reveal a long hallway, with glass-walled offices on either side. Everything looked professional, clean, ordinary. Marcus walked slowly, his eyes taking in everything. Employee names on doors, posted schedules, a bulletin board covered in memos and announcements. One announcement caught his eye. "Reminder, all workplace injuries must be reported within 24 hours per company policy." Interesting. He continued down the hall until he reached a corner office with a name plaque that read, Richard Shaw, Building Manager. The office was empty, but through the glass walls, Marcus could see a desk covered in papers, coffee-stained files, and a nameplate that had clearly been there for years. He memorized the name, Richard Shaw. Then he turned and took the stairs back down to the lobby. The receptionist was still at her desk, but now she was on the phone, her voice low and tense. "I understand that, but I need to—" She paused, listening, and her shoulders drew up tight. "No, I wasn't trying to— I'm sorry. Yes, I understand. It won't happen again." She hung up, and for just a moment, her carefully maintained expression cracked. Her eyes closed, her jaw clenched, her left hand pressed against her forehead like she was fighting off a headache. Then she opened her eyes, saw Marcus approaching, and the mask snapped back into place. "Mr. Ross," she said with false brightness, "did you find Klein and Associates all right?" "Meeting got rescheduled," Marcus lied smoothly. "They called while I was in the elevator. I'll need to come back tomorrow." "Oh," she nodded, reaching for his visitor's badge. "I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like me to schedule you for—" She gasped. It was sudden, sharp, a sound of pure pain that she tried desperately to swallow. Her right arm had shifted beneath the desk, and whatever movement she'd made had hurt. Badly. "You okay?" Marcus asked, his voice sharp with genuine concern. "I'm fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. Just bumped my elbow, clumsy. "Let me see." "No, really, let me see your arm." The words came out harder than he'd intended, carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. She froze, her eyes widening. Marcus softened his tone immediately. "Please, you're clearly hurt." For a long moment, she stared at him. He could see the calculation happening behind her dark eyes. The fear, the uncertainty, the desperate need to maintain her lie. Then slowly, she lifted her right arm from beneath the desk. Marcus's jaw tightened. Her arm was in a makeshift splint, unprofessional, clearly done by someone who wasn't a doctor. Ace bandages wrapped around her forearm and wrist. But worse than that were the bruises. Dark purple fingerprints wrapped around her upper arm, older yellowing bruises on her wrist. These weren't from a fall. These were from someone grabbing her. Hard. Repeatedly. Who did this? Marcus asked quietly. No one. Her voice was barely a whisper. I fell. Down my apartment stairs. It was my fault. I wasn't paying attention. You're lying. I'm not. Look at me. She did, reluctantly, and Marcus held her gaze. He'd spent his whole life reading people, detecting lies, understanding fear. This woman was terrified, not of him, of what would happen if she told the truth. What's your name? He asked. She hesitated. Emma. Emma Pierce. Emma? He repeated softly. I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but someone hurt you, and I don't think it was an accident. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back furiously. Please don't tell anyone. Please. I need this job. I can't lose this job. Why would you lose your job because someone hurt you? Because... She stopped herself, shaking her head. It doesn't matter. Please, Mr. Ross. Just forget you saw anything. Please. Before Marcus could respond, the elevator doors opened behind him. Emma's face went white. A man stepped into the lobby, mid-40s, expensive suit, thinning hair slicked back with too much gel. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with the swagger of someone who believed the world existed to serve him. Emma's entire body went rigid. Her injured arm disappeared back beneath the desk. Her expression became perfectly blank. The man's eyes swept the lobby, landed on Emma, then shifted to Marcus. Who's this? He demanded, his tone sharp. Just a visitor, Mr. Shaw, Emma said quickly. His meeting was rescheduled. He's leaving now. Shaw. Richard Shaw, the building manager. Marcus turned slowly, taking in every detail of the man before him. The expensive watch, the polished shoes, the entitled expression of someone who'd never faced real consequences in his life, and the way Emma was sitting, small, tense, afraid, when this man was in the room. Meeting with Klein? Shaw asked, his eyes narrowing at Marcus. That's right, Marcus said evenly. Shaw looked him up and down, with barely concealed disdain. Well, don't waste our receptionist's time. She has actual work to do. Understood, Marcus said, his voice mild. He turned back to Emma. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Thank you for your help, Emma, he said quietly. She nodded once, stiffly. Have a good day, Mr. Ross. Marcus walked out of the building, but he didn't leave. Instead, he crossed the street and found a coffee shop with a clear view of Sentinel Tower's entrance. He ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, and watched. Watched Richard Shaw leave an hour later, climbing into a BMW with a smug expression. Watched Emma through the glass doors, sitting alone at her desk, her shoulders hunched, her arm hidden. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call. Dom, he said when his head of security answered. I need everything you can find on someone. Richard Shaw, building manager at Sentinel Tower. Everything? Everything. Financial records, employment history, police reports, parking tickets. I don't care how small. I want to know what this man had for breakfast 3 years ago. Got it. When do you need it? Yesterday. Marcus hung up and took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving the building. Something was very wrong at Sentinel Tower, and Emma Pierce was at the center of it. He would find out why. Marcus returned to Sentinel Tower the next morning. Same worn clothes, same fake ID, same visitor's badge. But this time, he paid attention to everything. Emma was at her desk again, looking even more exhausted than the day before. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her left hand clutched a coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Mr. Ross," she said when she saw him, and there was a note of weary resignation in her voice. "Back for your rescheduled meeting?" "That's right. Klein and Associates, 9 o'clock." She printed. Marcus noticed something new, a bruise on her collarbone, just visible above the neckline of her dress. Fresh, maybe a day old. "Emma, your meeting is on the 7th floor," she interrupted, her voice flat. "Suite 704. Have a good day?" She wouldn't look at him. Marcus took the badge and headed for the elevator, but he didn't go to the 7th floor. Not yet. Instead, he found himself back on the 5th floor, walking past the administrative offices. This time, the building manager's office wasn't empty. Richard Shaw sat behind his desk, feet propped up, talking loudly on his phone. "I don't care what HR says," Shaw barked into the receiver. "She's lucky she still has a job after that stunt. If she keeps causing problems, she's gone. I don't care if she's been here a year. She's replaceable." Marcus kept walking, but the words echoed in his mind. She's replaceable. He spent the next 3 hours exploring the building, sitting in the small coffee shop in the lobby, observing, talking to the barista, who mentioned how sweet but sad the receptionist was, wandering the halls, listening to conversations, learning the building's rhythm, and what he learned made his blood run cold. Emma Pierce was invisible here. She greeted people with professional courtesy, but no one greeted her back. She worked through her lunch break. She stayed late. She never complained. And everyone ignored her, except Richard Shaw. At 2:01 p.m., Shaw came down to the lobby. Emma visibly tensed when she saw him. "Pierce," he snapped. "My office. Now." "But, Mr. Shaw, I can't leave the desk unattended. Did I ask for excuses?" "No, sir." "Then move." Emma stood slowly, cradling her injured arm, and followed Shaw to the elevator. Marcus watched from his seat in the coffee shop, his hands clenched around his cup. She was gone for exactly 12 minutes. When she returned, her eyes were red. Her hand trembled as she sat back down at her desk, and the way she moved, careful, measured, like every motion, hurt, told Marcus everything he needed to know. Whatever happened in that office had nothing to do with work. Marcus finished his coffee and left the building, his mind already working through possibilities. By 6 p.m., he was back in his real office, a converted penthouse across the city that served as his legitimate business headquarters. The space was elegant, minimalist, designed to intimidate. Dominic Russo, his head of security, was waiting for him with a thick folder. "Shaw's file," Dom said, dropping it on Marcus's desk. "And boss, you're not going to like it." Marcus opened the folder and started reading. Richard Shaw, 46 years old, married with 2 teenage kids, lived in an upscale suburb in a house he shouldn't have been able to afford on his salary, drove a BMW, belonged to a country club. And he had a pattern. Over the past 5 years, Shaw had worked at 3 different buildings. At each one, there had been complaints, harassment allegations, hostile work environment, inappropriate conduct with female employees, but none of the complaints had stuck. They'd all been quietly settled. The women had signed NDAs and left with small severance packages, and Shaw had moved on to the next job, with glowing recommendations from management that never mentioned why he'd really left. "There's more," Dom said, his voice grim. "Look at page 12. Marcus flipped to it and felt his jaw tighten. 2 years ago, a woman named Sarah Chen had filed a police report against Shaw. She'd worked as his administrative assistant and claimed he'd assaulted her in his office after hours. The report had been dropped 3 days later. No charges filed. No investigation. Sarah Chen had left the city entirely a month after that. I tracked her down, Dom continued. She wouldn't talk to me, but when I mentioned Shaw's name, she started crying and hung up. Marcus closed the folder carefully, keeping his expression neutral even though fury was building in his chest. What about Emma Pierce? He asked quietly. Clean record. Graduated from community college 2 years ago with an associate's degree in business administration. Works full-time at Sentinel Tower, takes night classes online for her bachelor's, lives alone in a studio apartment in a not-great neighborhood. No family in the area. Her mom died when she was 19. Dad's not in the picture. She's alone, Marcus said softly. Completely. Which makes her perfect. Perfect for what? Dom met his eyes. For Shaw. Think about it. She needs the job. She has no family to protect her. No connections. She's quiet, keeps her head down, doesn't make waves, and she works the front desk, which means Shaw sees her every single day. Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. Emma Pierce hadn't fallen downstairs. Richard Shaw had done something to her, hurt her, and she was too afraid to report it because she knew what happened to women who crossed him. They disappeared. Boss, Dom said carefully, what do you want to do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He'd built his empire on simple principles: loyalty, respect, and fear. People who crossed him paid for it. People who hurt the vulnerable under his protection paid for it even more. But Emma Pierce didn't know she was under his protection. Hell, she didn't even know who he really was. And if he revealed himself too soon, Shaw would know something was wrong. He'd cover his tracks, maybe even fire Emma on some bullshit pretext. No, this required patience. Strategy. I'm going back tomorrow, Marcus said. And the day after that, and the day after that, I want to see exactly what's happening in that building. You're going undercover again? I'm going to be Michael Ross, boring corporate consultant with meetings that keep getting rescheduled. No one important. No one threatening. And Shaw? Marcus's voice went cold. Shaw's going to hang himself. He just doesn't know it yet. For the next week, Marcus became a fixture at Sentinel Tower. He arrived at 8 a.m. each morning, always with a plausible excuse for being there, waiting for a meeting, checking out potential office space, meeting with his accountant. And every day, he watched Emma Pierce. She arrived early and left late. She never took breaks. She ate lunch at her desk, usually just a granola bar and coffee. When she thought no one was watching, she massaged her injured arm with a grimace of pain. But it was the small moments that revealed the truth. The way she flinched when footsteps approached from behind. The way her eyes darted toward the elevator every few minutes, tracking who came and went. The way she kept her phone face down on the desk, checking it compulsively but never answering calls during work hours. She was living in constant fear, and the source of that fear became obvious on Marcus's 4th day of observation. He was sitting in the lobby coffee shop when Richard Shaw appeared, his expression thunderous. Pierce! He bellowed from across the lobby. What the hell is this? Emma stood quickly, nearly knocking over her coffee cup. Mr. Shaw, You sent the Henderson contract to the wrong floor. Shaw stalked toward her desk, his voice rising. Do you have any idea what you've done? That's confidential information. I'm so sorry, sir. I must have misread the— You must have misread. You must have misread. Shaw slammed his hand down on her desk, making Emma jump. That's your excuse. You're incompetent. People in the lobby had stopped to stare. A woman waiting for the elevator clutched her purse tighter. The security guard shifted uncomfortably, but no one intervened. Mr. Shaw, please, I'll fix it right now. You'll fix it? You can't fix stupid, Pierce. Shaw leaned forward, his face inches from hers. Maybe if you spent less time flirting with visitors and more time doing your damn job, we wouldn't have this problem. Emma's face went scarlet. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them back. I understand, sir. I'm sorry. You're always sorry, Shaw sneered. That's all you ever are. Sorry and useless. I should have fired you months ago. He turned and stormed back toward the elevator, leaving Emma standing there, shaking. The lobby returned to normal within seconds. Everyone went back to their phones, their coffee, their conversations. Everyone except Marcus. He watched Emma sink back into her chair, her left hand covering her mouth as she struggled not to cry. Watched her take slow, deep breaths. Watched her open her desk drawer and pull out what looked like pain medication, swallowing it dry. And he noticed something else. Her injured arm was worse. The bruising had spread. The splint had shifted. She was in serious pain, but she hadn't gone to a doctor. Why? Marcus stood and walked to her desk. She didn't notice him at first, too focused on blinking away tears and trying to compose herself. Emma, he said quietly. She looked up, and her expression shifted immediately, professional mask slamming back into place despite her red-rimmed eyes. Mr. Ross, she said, her voice strained. I'm sorry, I didn't see you come in. Are you here for— Stop, Marcus interrupted gently. You don't have to apologize to me. She stared at him, confusion flickering across her face. What just happened? Marcus continued, keeping his voice low and calm. That wasn't okay. The way he spoke to you— It's fine, Emma said quickly. I made a mistake. He had every right to be upset. No, he didn't. Mr. Ross, he humiliated you in front of everyone. That's not about a misfiled contract. That's about power. Emma's hands clenched in her lap. Please don't. Please don't say anything. Why? Marcus asked. Why are you protecting him? For a moment, he thought she might tell him. Her eyes met his, and he saw the desperate need to trust someone, to share the weight she'd been carrying alone. Then her expression shuddered. Because I need this job, she whispered. Because I have student loans and rent, and I'm trying to finish my degree. Because I'm nobody, and he's management. And if I complain, I'm the one who will disappear. The words hung between them, heavy with bitter truth. You're not nobody, Marcus said quietly. Emma's eyes filled with tears again. You don't understand. People like me, we're invisible. We're just here to answer phones and print badges and be yelled at. And if we make waves, there are 1,000 other people who'll take our place. Is that what he told you? She looked away. It's what I know. Marcus wanted to tell her she was wrong, wanted to explain that she worked in his building, that Shaw was nothing, that one phone call from Marcus Romano could end Shaw's career and life as he knew it. But he couldn't. Not yet, because Emma needed to see the truth herself, needed to understand that justice was possible. Your arm, Marcus said instead, nodding toward her injured right side. It's getting worse. You need to see a doctor. I can't afford— I'll pay for it. No. The word was sharp, almost panicked. No, I can't accept that. I don't even know you. I'm someone who doesn't want to see you suffer. Why? Emma asked, and there was genuine confusion in her voice. Why do you care? You're just here for meetings. I'm just the receptionist. Marcus held her gaze. Because everyone deserves to be treated with basic human decency, and what's happening to you isn't decent. For a long moment, Emma didn't respond. Then she looked down at her desk, her voice barely audible. Please go, Mr. Ross. If Mr. Shaw sees us talking— She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, but Emma? She glanced up. You're not invisible to me. He walked away before she could respond, but he felt her eyes on him the entire way to the door. That night, Marcus sat in his office reviewing the security footage Dom had pulled from Sentinel Tower's cameras. He had access to everything, Every angle, every floor, weeks of archived footage. And what he found made him want to put Richard Shaw through a wall. The pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. Shaw called Emma to his office at least twice a week, always at the end of the day when most staff had left. She'd go up, stay for 10 to 20 minutes, then return looking shaken. 3 weeks ago, there was footage of her leaving Shaw's office with tears streaming down her face. That was the same day the first bruises appeared on her arm. 2 weeks ago, she'd left his office moving stiffly, favoring her right side. The broken arm had happened that week, and just yesterday, before Marcus had even started watching the building, Shaw had called her up again. When she returned, she'd locked herself in the single stall bathroom for 15 minutes. When she came out, her dress was disheveled. Her hair had fallen out of its ponytail, and she'd stood at the sink for a long time, just staring at her reflection. Marcus closed the video file, his hands shaking with suppressed rage. He'd seen a lot of terrible things in his life, done terrible things himself. But this systematic torture of someone powerless, this made him sick. "Boss," Dom said from the doorway, "you okay?" "No. What do you need?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said very softly, "I need to know everything Emma Pierce said no to, everything she protected, everything Shaw might be holding over her." "You think there's more?" "I know there is. Shaw's not just hurting her for fun. He's got leverage, something that keeps her silent even when the abuse gets worse." "I'll find it," Dom promised. "And Dom, I want options. Non-lethal options for dealing with Shaw. I'm not going to kill him." "You're not?" "No." Marcus's smile was cold and merciless. "I'm going to destroy him in a way that makes him wish I had." 2 days later, Dom called Marcus at 3 a.m. "I found it," he said without preamble. "Boss, I found what Shaw's using against Emma." Marcus was already reaching for his clothes. "Tell me." "Her brother." Marcus froze. "What brother? Your background check said she had no family." "That's what I thought too, but I dug deeper. Emma has a younger brother named Daniel. He's 21, lives in Nevada, and he's in serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that ends in prison time if the wrong person finds out. 6 months ago, Daniel got involved with some bad people, drug dealers. He was desperate for money, so he agreed to be a courier. Small stuff at first, but then they pushed him into more serious work." "And?" Marcus prompted, already seeing where this was going. "And 3 months ago, Daniel tried to back out. The dealers threatened him. He panicked and went to Emma. She was his only family. Of course he went to her." "What did she do?" "She tried to help him, used her savings to pay off part of his debt, but it wasn't enough. The dealers wanted the full amount, plus interest, $20,000. Emma didn't have it." Marcus closed his eyes. "Shaw found out." "Shaw found out," Dom confirmed. "I don't know how. Maybe Emma was stressed at work, maybe she made a phone call Shaw overheard. But somehow, he figured out that Emma's brother was vulnerable. And Shaw offered to help. Let me guess. For a price. He paid off Daniel's debt in full, got the dealers to leave him alone, even helped Daniel get a clean record. The drug charges disappeared. The kid's free now, working at a gas station in Nevada, completely oblivious. And in exchange, Emma became Shaw's property," Marcus said flatly. "Exactly. Shaw owns her. If she reports him, he'll make sure Daniel's drug connections come back. He'll destroy the kid's life. He's made that very clear to Emma." Marcus sat down heavily on the edge of his bed, the full horror of the situation washing over him. Emma Pierce wasn't just being abused. She was being blackmailed into silence by a man who held her brother's freedom in his hands. Every time Shaw hurt her, she had to stay quiet. Every time he humiliated her, she had to smile and thank him. Every time he called her to his office, she had to go, because saying no meant condemning her brother to prison or worse. There's more, Dom said quietly. I pulled Shaw's financial records. That $20,000 he gave Emma, it didn't come from his salary. It came from a separate account he's been using to skim money from building operations for years. He's embezzling. Big time. Shaw's been stealing from Sentinel Tower since the day he started. Fake invoices, inflated maintenance costs, padding payroll. He's taken at least $200,000 over the past 2 years. Marcus's mind was already working through the implications. So Shaw paid off Daniel's debt with stolen money. Yep. Which means Shaw has 2 secrets to protect: his embezzlement and what he's doing to Emma. If either one comes out, he's finished. And Emma has no idea Shaw's vulnerable too, Marcus said softly. She thinks he's untouchable. That's why she won't fight back. What do you want to do, boss? Marcus stood and walked to his window, looking out at the city. Dawn was beginning to break, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. What did he want to do? The easy answer was violence. Marcus could have Shaw disappeared by nightfall, could make it look like an accident, or a robbery, or nothing at all. Shaw would simply cease to exist, and the world would be better for it. But that wouldn't help Emma. If Shaw disappeared suddenly, there would be investigations, questions. Emma might even be implicated, especially if anyone found out she had a connection to him, and Emma would still believe she was powerless. Still believe that people like her couldn't win against people like Shaw. No. Marcus needed to give Emma something better than revenge. He needed to give her justice, and agency, and proof that she wasn't invisible after all. Set up a meeting, Marcus said. I want to talk to Emma, not at the building, somewhere private. She's not going to agree to meet a stranger outside of work. Then make it not seem strange. Tell her. Tell her I'm from a legal aid organization that helps workers dealing with harassment. Tell her we received an anonymous tip about conditions at Sentinel Tower, and we'd like to speak with her confidentially. Boss, do it. Dom sighed. You're really invested in this girl. I'm invested in making sure Shaw doesn't destroy another life, Marcus corrected. Emma just happens to be his current victim. But even as he said it, Marcus knew it was more than that. There was something about Emma Pierce, her quiet strength, her determination to protect her brother even at the cost of her own safety, that reminded him of someone, reminded him of his younger self, before he'd had power, when he'd been just another poor kid from a broken home, trying to survive in a world that didn't care if he lived or died. Someone had helped him then, had seen potential in a skinny teenager with anger issues, and given him a chance. Maybe it was time Marcus paid that forward. Emma sat in the small cafe, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched, and tried not to look as terrified as she felt. The email had arrived that morning, professional, formal, claiming to be from something called the Workers' Rights Legal Group. They'd said they were investigating labor violations at Sentinel Tower and wanted to speak with her confidentially about her employment experience. Emma's first instinct had been to delete it. Her second instinct had been to panic. Her third instinct, the one she'd reluctantly followed, was to show up, because maybe, just maybe, this was a way out. The cafe was quiet at 6 p.m. on a weekday. A few students tapped at laptops in the corner. An elderly couple shared a dessert near the window, and Emma sat alone at a small table, watching the door with mounting anxiety. Then it opened, and Michael Ross walked in. Emma's breath caught. What was he doing here? He couldn't be, but he was walking toward her table, his expression gentle and concerned, and Emma realized with a sinking feeling that this meeting had never been about a legal aid organization at all. Emma, he said quietly, stopping a few feet away. Thank you for coming. You, she whispered. The email was from you? Not exactly, But I'm the one who wanted to talk to you. Emma started to stand. I have to go. Please don't. Marcus held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Why? Why are you doing this? Who are you? Someone who wants to help. I don't need help. Yes, Marcus said gently. You do, and I think you know that. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She sat back down heavily, her good hand covering her face. I can't, she whispered. You don't understand. I can't talk to you. I can't talk to anyone. Marcus sat down across from her, maintaining a careful distance. It's your brother, isn't it, Daniel? That's why you can't speak up. Emma's head snapped up, her eyes wide with horror. How do you... I know Richard Shaw paid off Daniel's debt to some very dangerous people, Marcus said quietly. I know he's been using that as leverage to control you, and I know he's been hurting you for months. Stop, Emma pleaded. Please stop. If Shaw finds out I talked to you, Shaw isn't going to find out, and more importantly, Shaw isn't going to hurt you anymore. You don't understand. He has connections. He knows people. If I report him, Daniel will... Daniel is safe, Marcus interrupted. The people Shaw claimed to protect your brother from, they're already gone. They've been arrested on federal charges. Your brother isn't in danger anymore. Emma stared at him, her mouth opening and closing without sound. How... she finally managed. How do you know that? Marcus met her eyes steadily. Because I made sure they were arrested this morning. The cafe seemed to tilt around Emma. That's impossible. You're just a consultant or whatever. You can't just... I'm not a consultant, Marcus said simply. And I can. Emma shook her head, trying to process this. I don't understand. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. You don't know Daniel. I know enough, Marcus said. I know that Richard Shaw is a predator who's been using your love for your brother to torture you. I know you've been coming to work every day with broken bones and bruises because you're trying to protect Daniel. I know you're exhausted and in pain, and you've been carrying this alone for way too long. But, Emma, when was the last time someone helped you? Marcus asked gently. When was the last time someone saw you were hurting and actually did something about it? The tears came then, finally breaking through Emma's carefully maintained control. She covered her face with her left hand, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Marcus waited patiently, letting her cry. After a few minutes, he slid a napkin across the table. Thank you, Emma whispered, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, don't apologize. I feel like I'm going crazy, like this can't be real. It's real, Marcus assured her. And Emma, Shaw doesn't have power over you anymore. Your brother is safe. The leverage Shaw was using is gone. Emma looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her expression. But Shaw he still hurt me. And if I report it now, he'll deny everything. It's my word against his. He'll say I'm lying, that I'm trying to get money, He can't deny the evidence. What evidence? I never reported anything. There are no medical records, no witnesses. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened a video file, and turned the screen toward Emma. Security footage from Sentinel Tower, 3 weeks' worth. Every time Shaw called you to his office, every time he humiliated you in public. Everything. Emma stared at the phone, her face going pale. On the screen, she could see herself entering Shaw's office, could see the timestamp, could see the way Shaw closed the door behind her, the predatory smile on his face. She reached out and paused the video, her hand shaking. How did you get this? I have access to a lot of things, Marcus said carefully. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I don't know what you mean. Marcus leaned forward slightly. You have a choice, Emma. You can take this evidence and walk away. File a police report. Sue the company. I'll support you. However you want to handle this. Shaw will face consequences. Legal ones. Or, Emma asked, sensing there was more. Or you can let me handle Shaw in a different way. A way that ensures he never hurts anyone again. A way that's more final. Emma's eyes widened. You mean not what you're thinking, Marcus said quickly. I'm not going to kill him, but I can destroy his life the way he tried to destroy yours. I can make sure everyone knows what he did. I can make sure he loses everything. Why would you do that? Because I've spent my entire life dealing with men like Richard Shaw, Marcus said quietly. Men who think power gives them the right to abuse people who can't fight back. And I'm very, very good at making them pay for it. Emma was quiet for a long moment, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to run, to pretend this conversation had never happened, to go back to her quiet, painful existence and hope that Shaw eventually got bored and moved on. But another part of her, the part that had been suppressed for months under the weight of fear and exhaustion, that part was angry. That part wanted justice. I want him to pay, Emma said softly. I want him to know what it feels like to be powerless, to be humiliated, to be afraid. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he will. But I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me. Other employees, I mean. If this becomes a huge scandal, the building might close, people might lose their jobs. They won't, Marcus assured her. The building isn't going anywhere. Shaw is the problem, not Sentinel Tower. When he's gone, things will actually improve. How can you be so sure? Marcus smiled slightly. Because I own the building, Emma. Emma's cup of tea slipped from her fingers, hitting the table with a soft thud. She couldn't form words. My name isn't Michael Ross, Marcus continued calmly. It's Marcus Romano. Sentinel Tower is one of several properties I acquired through investment companies a few years ago. I don't usually involve myself directly, but when I found out what was happening to you, I couldn't look away. Emma's mind was reeling. Marcus Romano. The name was familiar, whispered in certain circles, powerful, dangerous, connected. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. People say you're in the Mafia. People say a lot of things, Marcus replied neutrally. Most of them are exaggerated, but yes, I have businesses and connections that aren't entirely conventional. And you've been watching me for days. Yes. Why? Because I saw you hiding your broken arm, Marcus said simply, and I recognized fear when I saw it. The rest was about finding out who had hurt you and why. Emma pressed her good hand against her forehead, trying to process this. This is insane. You're telling me that the owner of the building, the most dangerous man in the city, according to rumors, has been pretending to be a random consultant just to investigate my situation? That's an accurate summary, yes. Why? Emma asked again, more desperately this time. Why would you care? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said very softly, When I was 17, my father tried to beat me to death. I was small then, weak, no way to fight back. A neighbor, just some random guy who barely knew us, heard the noise and kicked down our door, pulled my father off me, probably saved my life. He paused, his eyes distant. I asked him later why he got involved, why he'd risk himself for a kid he didn't know. And he said, because someone who can help and doesn't isn't any better than the person doing the harm. That stuck with me. Emma felt fresh tears sliding down her face. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't be. It taught me an important lesson. Power is supposed to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's what it's for. And if you have power, and you use it to hurt the vulnerable. Instead, Marcus's expression hardened. Then you don't deserve to have power at all. Shaw's going to fight back, Emma said quietly. When you come after him, he's not going to just accept it. Let him try. He has lawyers, connections, money. Marcus smiled, and it was a cold, predatory expression that made Emma suddenly remember exactly who she was talking to. Emma, Shaw is middle management at one of my buildings. I respect that you're worried, but understand. Richard Shaw is an insect, and I'm about to step on him. Richard Shaw walked into Sentinel Tower on Monday morning feeling invincible. The weekend had been perfect. Golf with his buddies, an expensive dinner, his wife none the wiser about the cash he'd been skimming. Life was good, and best of all, that mousy little receptionist was exactly where she belonged, behind her desk, quiet and obedient, her arm still wrapped in its pathetic homemade splint. Shaw smirked as he walked past her without acknowledgement. God, she was so weak, so easy to control. The elevator ride to his office was smooth. He unlocked his door, set down his briefcase, and was about to boot up his computer when he noticed something odd. There was a folder on his desk, a thick black folder with no label. Shaw frowned. He never left files on his desk over the weekend, and his assistant knew better than to leave things here without permission. Curious, he opened it and went very, very still. The first page was a detailed breakdown of his financial embezzlement. Every fake invoice, every padded expense report, every dollar he'd stolen over the past 2 years. Numbers, dates, account transfers, all of it documented in meticulous detail. Shaw's hands started to shake. The second page was worse. Security camera stills. Emma Pierce entering his office. Timestamps. Incident reports he'd falsified. The third page made his blood run cold. It was a police report, filed early this morning. By Emma Pierce. Sexual harassment, assault, blackmail, coercion. And attached to the report was sworn testimony from Emma about the money Shaw had used to pay off her brother's debt, money that came from embezzled funds. No, Shaw whispered. No, no, no. His office phone rang, making him jump. He grabbed it. What? Mr. Shaw? His assistant's voice was nervous. There are police officers here to see you. What? And she paused. And there are people from the State Labor Board. And someone from the FBI? Shaw dropped the phone. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. He'd been so careful. He'd made sure Emma was too afraid to talk. He'd destroyed evidence. He'd covered his tracks. But as he stared at the folder on his desk, he realized the truth. Someone had been watching him. Someone had documented everything. Someone had been waiting for exactly the right moment to destroy him. The office door opened without warning. 3 police officers entered, their expressions professionally neutral. Richard Shaw? One of them asked. Shaw's voice cracked. I want a lawyer. You're going to need one. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Shaw caught sight of something else in the folder. A single business card, black with silver lettering. Marcus Romano. No, Shaw whispered again, but it was already too late. Emma watched from the lobby as police officers escorted Richard Shaw out of the building in handcuffs. She'd expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, relieved. Instead, she mostly felt numb. Other employees clustered around, whispering. Some looked shocked, others satisfied. A few were already pulling out their phones to gossip about it. Emma sat at her desk and tried to do her job, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Emma. She looked up to find Marcus standing there, dressed in an elegant suit this time, looking every inch, the powerful man he actually was. Mr. Romano, she said quietly. Is it done? It's done. Shaw's been arrested on multiple charges: embezzlement, assault, fraud, blackmail. The FBI is involved now because he was stealing from a federally insured company. He's looking at serious prison time. Emma nodded slowly. Good. How are you feeling? Honestly, I don't know. Marcus gestured toward the elevator. Come on, let's talk somewhere private. They rode up to the 5th floor, Shaw's old office, which was now swarming with FBI agents collecting evidence. Marcus led Emma past them to a smaller conference room at the end of the hall. When the door closed, cutting off the chaos outside, Emma finally let herself breathe. I filed the police report this morning like you told me to, she said. It was really hard, telling them everything, admitting what he did. You were incredibly brave. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Marcus smiled, slightly. That's normal. You just took down a man who terrorized you for months. You're allowed to feel shaky. Emma sank into one of the conference room chairs, cradling her injured arm. What happens now? To me, I mean? Do I still have a job? Of course you still have a job. But Emma... Marcus sat down across from her. You don't have to stay at the front desk if you don't want to. Shaw's gone, but this building probably has some bad memories for you now. I need the paycheck, Emma said practically, and the health insurance. I'm finally going to get my arm looked at properly, but that requires insurance. What if I told you there's another option? Emma looked at him warily. What kind of option? I need a new building manager for Sentinel Tower, someone trustworthy, someone who understands what it's like to be at the bottom of the hierarchy, someone who'll actually care about the staff instead of terrorizing them. Emma's eyes widened. You're offering me Shaw's job? I'm offering you a management position, yes. It comes with a substantial pay increase, better benefits, and your own office on this floor. I don't have any management experience. You've been running the front desk efficiently for a year while dealing with abuse and a broken arm. Trust me, you're qualified. Emma shook her head slowly. I can't accept that. It's too much. Why? Because... She struggled for words. Because you're doing this out of pity, or guilt, or because you feel like you need to rescue me or something. And I don't want to be anyone's charity case. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. Emma, I'm not offering you this job because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering it because I saw how you handled yourself under impossible circumstances. You showed up every day despite being in pain and terrified. You protected your brother even when it cost you everything. You didn't break, even when Shaw tried his hardest to break you. That's not weakness. That's strength I can build on. But think of it this way. Shaw stole $200,000 from this building through his embezzlement. That money's being recovered by the FBI, and once the legal process is done, it'll come back to Sentinel Tower's operating budget. I'm going to use part of it to properly train a new building manager. That new manager is going to make sure every single employee in this building is treated with respect and dignity. And that manager is going to be someone who remembers what it feels like to be powerless. Emma was quiet for a long moment. I'd need to finish my degree first, she said finally. I'm only halfway through my bachelor's program. The job will include tuition reimbursement and flexible hours so you can attend classes. And my brother, Daniel, is he really safe? Completely safe. The people who threatened him are in federal custody. I've also arranged for Daniel to receive proper counseling and job training. He's got a clean slate. Emma's eyes filled with tears again. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. Just promise me something. What? Promise me you'll never let anyone make you feel invisible again. You're not invisible, Emma. You never were. Emma wiped her eyes with her good hand. I promise. Good. Now go get that arm looked at. You're officially on paid medical leave until it heals. When you come back, we'll start your management training." Emma stood slowly, then hesitated. "Mr. Romano, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you do all this?" "Really? I know what you said about the neighbor who saved you, but there had to be easier ways to deal with Shaw. You didn't have to get this involved." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "A long time ago, someone told me that the measure of a man isn't how he treats his equals. It's how he treats people who can't fight back. Shaw treated you like you were nothing because he thought he could. I wanted to remind him that the people he thinks don't matter. They matter more than he ever will." Emma smiled, the first real smile Marcus had seen on her face. "I think I'm going to like working for you, Mr. Romano. Call me Marcus. And I think I'm going to like having you on my team." 6 months later, Emma Pierce stood in her new office on the 5th floor of Sentinel Tower, looking out at the city, and barely recognized her own life. Her arm had healed completely after surgery. The nightmares were fading. She'd finished her bachelor's degree and was already thinking about graduate school. But more than that, she'd found something she hadn't expected: purpose. As the new building manager, Emma had implemented sweeping changes: a new HR policy with anonymous reporting, mandatory harassment training for all staff, regular check-ins with employees to ensure concerns were addressed, and most importantly, she'd created what she called the Invisible Employee Initiative, a program specifically designed to support the people no one usually noticed: the cleaning crew, the security guards, the administrative staff, the people like she used to be. "Knock, knock," a familiar voice said from her doorway. Emma turned to see Marcus leaning against the frame, looking amused. "Mr. Romano, I didn't know you were coming by today." "Surprise inspection," he said with a slight smile. "How's everything going?" "Good, really good, actually. We just hired 2 new receptionists, and I made sure they both know they can come to me with any concerns. I saw your proposal for extended mental health benefits. Approved, by the way." "Thank you." Marcus walked into her office, glancing around at the photos Emma had hung on the walls, pictures of the building's staff, their achievements, their families. "You've made this place better," he said quietly. "Shaw's gone, and the whole culture has shifted. People actually seem happy to come to work now. That was the goal." Emma paused, then added, "I owe you everything, you know. This job, my education, my brother's safety, all of it. You don't owe me anything. You earned all of this yourself. Still, I won't forget what you did." Marcus met her eyes. "Just remember what I told you. You're not invisible, Emma. You never were. The world just needed to catch up." Emma smiled. "I remember, every single day." As Marcus left her office, Emma turned back to the window, watching the city spread out below her. She thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago, frightened, hurt, powerless. And she thought about the woman she'd become, strong, confident, in control of her own life. Richard Shaw was in prison, awaiting trial. His wife had divorced him. His reputation was destroyed, his life was over, and Emma Pierce was just beginning. Justice, she'd learned, wasn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it was quiet and methodical. Sometimes it looked like a broken receptionist getting a second chance. Sometimes it looked like a mafia boss who remembered what it meant to be powerless. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who think they're invisible turn out to be the most important people of all. 3 years after Richard Shaw's arrest, Marcus Romano sat in a high-rise office across town, reviewing quarterly reports from his various holdings. Sentinel Tower's numbers were exceptional. Employee retention was up. Productivity was up. Even tenant satisfaction had improved dramatically. All because one frightened receptionist had been given the chance to show what she was capable of. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Lunch this week? There's something I want to run by you. Marcus smiled and typed back. Thursday at noon. The usual place. 2 days later, they met at a quiet Italian restaurant where Marcus was a regular. Emma arrived looking professional and confident in a tailored suit, her hair pulled back in an elegant twist. She looked nothing like the terrified girl he'd met 3 years ago. "You're looking well," Marcus said as they sat down. "I feel well," Emma replied with a genuine smile. "Life's been good." "So, what did you want to discuss?" Emma pulled out a folder, not unlike the one Marcus had left on Shaw's desk that fateful Monday morning, and slid it across the table. "I've been thinking," she said, "about all the Emmas out there, all the people being abused by their bosses, too afraid to speak up, trapped in situations they can't escape from." Marcus opened the folder and found himself looking at a detailed business proposal. The Invisible Initiative, a non-profit organization providing legal and financial support to workers facing workplace abuse. "You want to start a charity," Marcus said, impressed. "I want to do what you did for me," Emma corrected, "but on a larger scale. Legal representation for people who can't afford it. Emergency financial assistance, counseling, services, safe housing for those who need to escape dangerous work situations. All of it. This is ambitious. I know, and I know I don't have the resources to fund it myself, but I was hoping—" Emma took a breath. "I was hoping you might want to be involved. Not just financially, but strategically. You understand how to navigate situations where the victims are terrified and the abusers have all the power." Marcus read through her proposal carefully. It was thorough, well-researched, realistic. "Why now?" he asked. "You've got a great career at Sentinel Tower. You could stay there, move up, eventually become a regional manager or beyond. Why risk all that?" "Because I can't forget where I came from," Emma said simply. "I was one of the lucky ones, Marcus. I had you, but there are thousands of people suffering right now who don't have anyone. And I keep thinking, what if I could be their you?" Marcus set down the proposal and looked at Emma for a long moment. 3 years ago, she'd been broken, afraid, convinced she was worthless. Now she wanted to save others. "I'll fund it," he said. "All of it. Initial operating costs, legal team, office space, whatever you need." Emma's eyes went wide. "Marcus, this is millions of dollars. I'm aware. Consider it an investment." "In what?" "In proving that the system can actually work, that people like Shaw can be stopped, that people like you can not only survive, but thrive." Marcus smiled slightly. "Besides, I've been looking for a good way to legitimize some of my wealth. A charitable foundation focused on workers' rights? That's excellent optics." Emma laughed. "Always the strategist." "Always," Marcus agreed. "But Emma, this is your organization. I'll provide funding and advice when you need it, but you're in charge. No interference from me unless you ask for it." "Deal." Emma extended her hand across the table. Marcus shook it. "When do you want to launch?" "I was thinking 6 months. Enough. Time to hire staff, set up infrastructure, establish partnerships with existing legal aid organizations." "Make it 3 months." 3? That's barely enough time to— "Emma, there are people suffering right now. Today, tomorrow. Every day we delay is another day someone's being hurt. 3 months, and I'll put my best people on it to help you get set up." Emma took a deep breath, then nodded. 3 months. The Invisible Initiative officially opened its doors on a rainy Tuesday morning in downtown Manhattan. The office was modest, but professional. 3 floors of a converted brownstone, with intake rooms, conference spaces, and offices for the legal team Emma had carefully assembled. Marcus attended the quiet launch event, watching as Emma addressed the small crowd of supporters, donors, and media. 3 years ago, Emma said, standing at a podium with quiet confidence. I was being abused by my boss. He broke my arm. He threatened my family. He made me believe I was worthless and that speaking up would only make things worse. The room was silent. I stayed quiet because I was afraid, because I needed my job, because I thought no one would believe me, because I was invisible. Emma paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. But then someone saw me. Someone refused to let my suffering continue. Someone gave me not just justice, but a future. And today, I'm standing here because I want to do the same for others. She gestured to the office around them. The Invisible Initiative exists to help people who feel powerless. If you're being harassed at work, if your boss is retaliating against you for speaking up, if you can't afford a lawyer, if you're trapped in a dangerous situation and don't know where to turn, we're here. Marcus found himself unexpectedly moved as Emma continued speaking, detailing the services they would offer, the protections they would provide, the justice they would seek. This was his legacy, he realized. Not the businesses, not the money, not even the fear his name inspired in certain circles. This, helping someone powerless become powerful, and then watching them use that power to help others. This was what actually mattered. After the event, as the crowd filtered out, Emma approached Marcus with a smile. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. Stop thanking me. You did this. We did this, Emma corrected. You showed me what's possible when someone with power actually uses it the right way. I'm just following your example. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You know, I've done a lot of questionable things in my life. Hurt people, made choices I'm not proud of. But helping you? That's the one thing I know I got absolutely right. Emma's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You saved my life. No, Marcus said gently. I just gave you a chance to save yourself. There's a difference. 5 years later, the Invisible Initiative had grown beyond anything Emma had imagined. 3 offices across the country, a staff of 47, including lawyers, counselors, and advocates, hundreds of cases handled, dozens of workplace abusers held accountable, lives changed, futures restored. Emma herself had become something of a media figure, giving TED Talks, writing articles, appearing on news programs to discuss workplace harassment and systemic abuse. But she always credited the stranger who'd seen her hiding a broken arm and decided to care. Marcus watched from a distance, proud and satisfied. He'd never publicly confirmed his involvement with the initiative. Emma kept his identity confidential, referring to him only as a private donor who believed in second chances. That was fine with Marcus. He didn't need recognition. He had something better. The knowledge that Emma Pierce, who'd once been invisible, was now changing the world. And late at night, when Marcus reviewed reports from Sentinel Tower, he sometimes thought about that. Morning 5 years ago, when he'd walked into his own building and noticed a receptionist hiding her arm. He thought about all the ways that moment could have gone differently. He could have ignored it, could have sent someone else to investigate, could have handled it with cold efficiency, firing Shaw and moving on without a second thought. But instead, he'd gotten personally involved. He'd watched, listened, learned Emma's story, and in doing so, he'd remembered something important. Power wasn't about control, it was about responsibility. And sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was help someone invisible become visible. Richard Shaw served 8 years in federal prison for embezzlement, assault, and blackmail. When he was released, he found that his professional reputation was destroyed, his personal relationships were gone, and no one would hire him. He'd learned the hard way that people he thought didn't matter could, in fact, destroy him. Daniel Pierce, Emma's brother, graduated from community college and became a substance abuse counselor. He worked with at-risk youth, helping them avoid the mistakes he'd made. He never knew the full extent of what his sister had sacrificed to save him. Emma made sure of that. And Emma Pierce? She continued to run the Invisible Initiative, helping countless people find their voices, their strength, their justice. She never forgot what it felt like to be powerless, and she made damn sure no one else had to feel that way alone. On the 10th anniversary of the Invisible Initiative, Emma stood at a gala fundraiser, looking out at the crowd of supporters, donors, and staff. Marcus Romano stood at the back of the room, nursing a glass of whiskey, content to observe. Emma was giving a speech about the future of the organization, its expansion plans, its partnerships with international labor rights groups. She was confident, powerful, unstoppable. Nothing like the frightened girl hiding a broken arm behind a desk. After the speech, Emma made her way through the crowd toward Marcus. "You came," she said with a warm smile. "Wouldn't miss it." 10 years, Emma marveled. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "Believe it. You built this." "We built it," Emma corrected. "I know you like to stay in the background, but this wouldn't exist without you." Marcus shrugged. "I was just in the right place at the right time." "No," Emma said firmly. "You were a powerful man who chose to care about someone powerless. That's not luck, Marcus. That's character." Before Marcus could respond, a young woman approached them nervously. "Ms. Pierce, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you." She was barely 20, with anxious eyes and nervous hands. "I came to the initiative 6 months ago after my manager, after he—" She trailed off, struggling. Emma took her hand gently. "You don't have to explain. I understand. Your lawyers helped me, and the counselors, and the emergency housing fund. I got away, I'm safe now, and I'm in college, and I wanted you to know that you saved my life." "You saved your own life," Emma said softly. "I just helped you see that you could." The young woman nodded, tears in her eyes, and moved away. Marcus and Emma stood in silence for a moment. "That happens a lot," Emma said quietly. "People thanking me for saving them, but I always think about what you said. I just gave them a chance to save themselves. Still counts." "Does it ever feel like it's not enough?" Emma asked. "Like no matter how many people we help, there are always more who need it?" "Yes," Marcus admitted, "but that doesn't mean we stop trying." Emma smiled. "You know, I used to think powerful people were all like Shaw, people who use their power to hurt others, but you taught me something important." "What's that?" "That true power isn't about making people afraid of you. It's about making people believe in themselves." Emma turned to face him fully. "You gave me my life back, Marcus, and in doing so, you gave hundreds of other people their lives back too. That's real power." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he raised his glass slightly. "To being invisible no more." Emma clinked her glass against his. "To being invisible no more." As the gala continued around them, Marcus Romano and Emma Pierce stood together, the mafia boss and the receptionist, now friends and partners in making the world slightly less cruel. Richard Shaw had thought Emma was invisible. He'd thought wrong, because the truth was, no one was invisible. Some people just needed someone to see them first. And once they were seen, once they understood their own worth, nothing could stop them. Not abuse, not fear, not men like Shaw who thought power meant the right to destroy. Emma Pierce had been invisible. Now she was a force of nature, and it had all started with a broken arm, a suspicious stranger, and the simple question, "Who did this to you?" Sometimes that's all it takes. Someone who cares enough to ask, and someone brave enough